Can you not see that by using the highest law, the absolute law of God, you may bring forth that which you need or conceive in mind as your highest ideal, and thus please God more fully by manifesting more fully, knowing as Jesus did that we are perfect sons of God? Does not this suggest freedom from commercial bondage as well as all other bondage? As I see it, the commercial bondage will in a few years become the greatest bondage of all. If it goes on at the rate it is now progressing, it will dominate man, soul, and body, and it cannot do otherwise than consume itself and those that are interested in it. There is no question but that the first inception of commercialism was on a high spiritual plane. But materialism was allowed to creep in until the very power used to create is the power that will consume, just as the very power used to create will always consume if not used rightly. Is not the pressing of commercialism and limitations upon us crowding us on to see that we must come up over or overcome these conditions? Is not this done by simply realizing that we are to do the perfect works of God, to raise our consciousness to the Christ consciousness? Is not this what Jesus taught us here on earth? Does not his whole life exemplify this? My dear brothers, do you not see that in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God? At this time, everything to be formed later was in unmanifest form, in the universal mind substance, or as expressed by some in chaos. The word in the original was actuality. This word, chaos, is misinterpreted to mean turbulent or warring state, instead of the deep spiritual state of actuality, always awaiting a definite, creative, spoken word through which it can spring forth into manifest form. When God principle desires to bring forth the world out of universal mind substance, God was quiet and contemplative. In other words, God saw an ideal world. He held in mind that substance of which the world was to be formed a sufficient time to lower its vibration. Then he spoke the word, and the world was formed, or as we might say, God visualized a mental pattern or mold into which could flow the substance needed to make the world, and it came forth a perfect form, built upon the pattern which was held in consciousness. All these things might have been thought of by God, infinite power. He might have wished during an indefinite time that they were formed and made visible. Had not the definite spoken word been put forth into the formless ether, nothing would have been created or brought forth into visible form. In order to establish in visible results the thought and desires of even an infinite, omnipotent Creator, and bring orderly forms out of actuality, it took the definite, positive, let there be. So must we take the definite step. God is holding the ideal perfect world in mind in every detail, and it is bound to come forth as a heaven or perfect home where all his children, all his creatures, and all his creations may dwell in peace and harmony. This is the perfect world that God saw in the beginning, and the one he is thinking into existence right now. And the time of its manifestation lies in our acceptance of it. When we can come to the one place and know that we are all one man, and know that we are all members of God's body, as much as one member of our body is a part of the whole body, then we are in and of God's kingdom, heaven, here on earth, now. To make this manifest, realize that there is nothing material in heaven. All is spiritual. Realize that heaven is a perfect state of consciousness, a perfect world here on earth now, and all we need to do is accept it. It is here all about us, waiting for us to open the inner eye. Through that eye our body shall be made light, the light which is neither of the sun nor moon, but of the Father. And the Father is right here in the very innermost part of our being. We must sufficiently realize that there is nothing material, that all is spiritual. Then we must think of that wonderful, God-given spiritual world, which is right here now, if we can realize it. Do you not see that God created all in this way? Did not God first become quiet and contemplated and see the light? Then he said, "Let there be light," and it was so. In the same way he said, "Let there be firmament," and it was so, and likewise with other creations. He held each form or ideal steadfast in consciousness, then spoke the word, and the ideal was brought forth. Just so with man. God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and give him dominion over all." God, all good, created all things good. Man, the greatest and last, with full dominion over all. Then man saw only good, and all was good, until man separated himself from God and saw duality, or two. Then he, by his thought, created two, one good and the other the opposite. For if there were two, they would be opposite, good and evil. Thus evil came through man's perfect power to express or bring forth that which he gazes upon. If man had not seen evil, evil would have been given no power of expression. Only the good would have been expressed, and we would be as perfect as God sees us today. Would not heaven always have been on earth as God sees it, and as we must all see it to make it manifest? Jesus had a perfect right to say that he came from heaven, for did not all come from heaven, the great universal mind substance? Since man was created in the image and likeness of God, did not God give man the power to create exactly as he creates? And does not God expect man to use that power as freely as he uses it, and in exactly the same way? By first perceiving the need, then conceiving the good, the ideal with which to fill the mold that we hold in consciousness, and which is to be filled from the universal mind substance, then sending forth the word that it is filled, that it is so, and it is good. Jesus, when he was crucified, gave his flesh, the outer, what we see of the body, to prove that there is really a deeper or spiritual body, and it is this spiritual body that he manifested when he came forth from the tomb. This is the body of which he spoke when he said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." He did this to show us we have the same spiritual body, and that we can do all the works he did. There is no question that if Jesus had wished to do so, he could have saved himself. There is no doubt but that he saw there was a great change taking place in his body. He also saw that those about him were not able to see that they also could bring forth the spiritual body, as he was attempting to have them see. They still looked to the personal, and he saw that if he brought forth the spiritual body without some decided change, the people would not be able to discern between the material and the spiritual. So he adopted the way of the crucifixion to bring about the change. Truly is not this the Christ in man, which the great Master Jesus, whom we all love and reverence, came to show? Did he not unfold his life here on earth to show us the perfect way to God? Can we do other than love this perfect ideal way when we once see it, whether it be planting seed, making bread, or doing the 1,000,001 things necessary to human existence? Are not these acts mere lessons, carrying us on to our unfoldment? Someday we are to realize that we are truly sons of God, not servants, that as sons we can and do have all that the Father has, and that we can use it just as freely as our Father does. I admit this takes a mighty faith at first, one that usually must be taken step by step, and must be practiced faithfully, like music or mathematics, until we come to the place of knowing. Then we are grandly, beautifully free.